it's now done. Mr. Joseph Parry in 1993 could simply have and said, I'm not taking part, I'm also neutral. Joseph Parry did two things which will forever stand out in my memory. One, he had the strength and the courage and the decency to go to St. Kitts. Well, first of all, to say to Vance Amri, Vance, you have 2 seats. You should join with somebody. And when Vance Amri decided, first he was going to join with the Labour Party, then he was going to join with PAM, then he was going to be neutral, Mr. Parry said to him, join with somebody. And when he didn't join, Mr. Parry then went and joined with PAM and formed a minority government. The second important thing that Joseph Parry did, and which still escapes some people, the Four Seasons Accord, apart from what was agreed in terms of elections in 2 years and so on and so on, Joseph Parry said at the Four Seasons Accord, and I will not participate in any more federal elections. I will concentrate on Nevis. What a lot of people don't realize is that Vance Amri agreed to the same thing. And having agreed, he participated in every single federal election until CCM got rid of him. So those two things stand out in my memory.
Most definitely. So we look forward.
History lesson for me, right?
Well, you're too young. That's why I thought I'd keep Carlisle on for a minute. Carlisle, any final thoughts before you go?
Well, our work has already started for 2025. The party will have our first executive meeting this week, tomorrow. And we're looking at reforming and reshaping a number of things. We have already redone the Constitution. And so we are looking now at reforming, reshaping, preparing ourselves further for the next election here in Nevis. Because NRP has a mandate to save Nevis.
Correct.
We, based on what we have seen with this CCM government, they are hopeless, clueless, and have no idea as to how to save Nevis. And I just wish sometimes I would wake up and I would hear, just like Prime Minister in Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Rowley, that the Premier has said, listen, he has done.
What about
he's all but finished.
What about in Canada
Trudeau, Justin Trudeau in Canada today, decided, listen, I'm done. And so he's out. I'm just hoping that I would wake up and hear somebody say that Mark Brantley has decided formally that he has had enough. Because we have seen by his lack of productivity, that he's done. He has had enough. So we want to hear him say that he's formally done. Because when you look around the rest of his party, who would replace him as leader?
that is exactly the issue.
JD, these fellows can't even sell sweets from a tray. They can't even lead selling sweets from a tray at a primary school where they have a captive audience.
Correct.
So he's done, they're done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Steve. Good show. JD, good luck.
Well,
All right,
thank you. Remember, you have to do a little bit of technical work here for me. Thank you. It's been a long day for you, and we'll let you go. And we look forward to 2025. So, JD,
yes.
You have to pick it up there. You want to start with the convention or the
gala?
Or the greetings you had to fill in? Or?
Okay, sure. So for those of you who just tuned in, we want to welcome you. You missed a little bit. You missed our chairman, the party's chairman, Mr. Carlisle Powell. I almost said Honorable Carlisle Powell. Mr. Carlisle Powell, giving some reflections on not just the NRP gala that was amazing last week, Monday, but about giving some background information on how we got to where we are today. So we want to thank him for that. I want to extend condolences before we get into, the actual discussion to all who are mourning at this point in time. For those who have been asking, the funeral service of the late Pearline Powell will take place this week. That's this Thursday at the Shiloh Baptist Church. It's at 2 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. So please take note of that. Now, Pearline is the young lady who I and others were challenging or begging or pleading with persons to come forward and offer some assistance to her because she had become ill. Lovely lady, in my mind, gone way too soon, but we definitely want to say thanks to all who contributed and offer condolences to her entire family, her children, her siblings, her grandchildren, her fellow villagers, everyone who mourn her loss. She will be deeply missed. Additionally, we've seen lots and lots of bad news as it relates to vehicular accidents in St. Kitts and Nevis, particularly on the island of St. Kitts. We are one federation, so I just want to pause here and extend my own condolences to all who are mourning. I mean, it seemed like almost every day, or almost every week rather, we're getting news of another vehicular accident, and in some cases they had multiple deaths in one accident. So it was really, really tragic. And I am just pleading and joining others in pleading with our motorists to drive carefully. Remember, when you take to the road, you're not just driving for yourself, you're driving for everyone, the fellow drivers, the fellow motorists, the fellow pedestrians. So please, please be careful. The life you save may be your very own. So I am pleading, I am asking, I am begging with all of our motorists to please exercise due care and attention when traversing our roads. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned those, Mr. Manners.
You know, I ran into Idella. Everybody knows Idella.
Yes.
I think it was Friday. Extended New Year greetings, and she told me that she's got 2 funerals this week. Of course, there's Pearline.
Pearline, yeah.
Children's and then she said
aunt.
the young man, if I recall correctly, who died in St. Kitts in
Yes.
the first accident,
Yes, yes.
is the first cousin of her granddaughter,
Tav, who died.
about
Yeah.
2 culturamas ago. So there are a lot of people. Sometimes we hear there's an accident in St. Kitts, but these countries are so interwoven
Yeah.
that it affects both islands.
And it triggered a lot of emotion. So you could imagine Idella's daughter when she got the news, how she felt. I mean, my mind ran on her instantly because, you know, the connection with them. And so it was like it just brought back all these feelings. So, you know, guys, we just have to try our best to be careful. I mean, people are out here still mourning, still grieving. It's just far too many accidents, too many accidents. We know we had the Dr. Simonette Williams. She too lost her life. It's just so many accidents. I am asking all of us to just be careful because, as I said earlier, the life you save may be your very own.
Well, it's not just accidents. Of course, the news hit the Federation, I think, yesterday about Malachi...
Ferguson? No.
Ferguson. Yeah, Malachi
Ferguson.
Okay. Apparently, a young, upcoming studying law at Caville campus in Barbados, a member of Scanaipa, St. Kitts Nevis Youth Parliament, and just before I came here, I saw Devon Cornelius writing about him because he joined Scanaipa in 2019 and took over from him as a public relations officer. Even the Attorney General was moved to comment about his passing. I don't know him.
And Jeffrey Hanley and
Do you know a lot about him? And
no, I don't. But I realize that him and Devon had that closeness based on their association with the St. Kitts Nevis National Youth Parliament. And so I want to also extend condolences to his entire family and friends, particularly our very own Devon Cornelius, who is also mourning his loss. I never interacted with him. I've never met him, but I've seen quite a bit of commentary surrounding his what seems like sudden passing. So, you know, it's just a lot of sad news for people, Mr. Manners. It's just sad. Well, we have to celebrate life and we have to be thankful for where we are because in the blink of an eye, I mean, it could be your last.
Okay, so let's go back to last Monday night at the Malcolm Gishard Park and your take. Of course, you're an integral part of the process.
So last Monday, if you were not at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park, you surely missed out. The Nevis Reformation Party hosted its end of year gala and award ceremony, and it was spectacular. So what we wanted to do was have an event that served multiple purposes. We wanted to honor people who don't always get the recognition, persons who aren't necessarily in the spotlight, but they deserve to be recognized for their tireless efforts, not just towards their community, but also to the Nevis Reformation Party and the impact that they've had on their communities and the people around them, and of course on the NRP. So that's one of the things we wanted to do. And by doing so, we identified 5 persons, one from each constituency on Nevis, who is fitting of an award dubbed the Long Service Award. And I'll give you the names in a bit. Another mandate or another thing that we wanted to accomplish by hosting the end of year gala and award ceremony was to bring people together to celebrate. We want people to feel good. We want people to celebrate life and celebrate themselves. As I mentioned earlier, there was so much sadness plaguing our nation. So we wanted to give people an opportunity to just celebrate life. We are not where we want to be, but we are definitely further ahead than we were yesterday. So we wanted to give people that opportunity to just celebrate and unwind and have a great time at the end of the year. Additionally, we wanted to show people, listen, even though the party you support or you're affiliated with, and even if you have no interest in politics at this time, the party that is the main opposing party on the island of Nevis and remains the best party to serve Nevis at this point in time, wants you to recognize that, hey, it's the end of year. You may not have gotten a little extra in your pocket, but we want you to still feel good about yourself. So we came together and we did something for you. So those are some of the things we wanted to celebrate and accomplish by having this end of year gala and award ceremony. We recognized 5 persons from Nevis 1 St. Paul. We had Lias Diana Webb of Hamilton. From St. John, that's constituency 2, we had Cynthia Deborah Morris. From constituency 3, that's St. George, we had Monica Tyson. From constituency 4, that's St. James, we had Paula Wallace. From constituency 5, we had Loretta Tyson. So 5 ladies. It's sheer coincidence that they're all ladies.
I was going to ask you about that.
Sheer coincidence that they're all ladies.
Somebody at my table said all women.
Yeah, that was just coincidence, because what happened was the executive had no part in the selection. What we did was just let persons know, let the constituency groups know what we were looking for in terms of the name of the award, long service, and somebody who doesn't always get recognized, but they've been an integral part, etc., etc., in a nutshell. And we left it up to each constituency group to make their recommendation and give their nomination. And we were so pleased by the nominations. We also read the profiles of each person for those who couldn't be there, but you joined via social media. You would have heard the profiles, and we are going to ensure that we get those featured on our page as well, our social media pages, so that you can know. We don't just want it to be a one-off. We want people to recognize that these people really gave great service to the party and their communities. So those are the 5 ladies who were awarded. It was held in honor of the Honorable Joseph Parry and Mrs. Colette Parry. And as such, we had a profile read of Mr. Parry. Now, as someone who worked under the Parry-led Nevis Island administration, I've heard quite a bit about him. But it seems that every time I hear about Mr. Parry, I learn something new. So even though I worked in the Department of Information and we had to write several stories about him, and I mean, I was at all the political meetings, and so I've heard about him, and I grew up knowing NRP as the party in my household. So you keep hearing about him. It's like every time I learn something new. So I agree with Mr. Powell. I mean, he really needs to write a book, not just about his life, but about the impact. I mean, this man is a visionary, and I think we take it for granted. My only regret is that some of the young persons now were not around or were not old enough to recognize the impact that he and his team had on the island of Nevis, how we transformed Nevis with very little. so that they can appreciate what the NRP now is trying to do. Because many of the young voters came in at a time where CCM is all they know. And so they don't have anything to compare it to. And while they are not satisfied with the level of representation that they are getting, some will tell you straight up they just don't know any better. They don't know about the legacy. And so sometimes we have to work a little harder in convincing them that, listen, it definitely can't get any worse. That's the reality. So yes, so we spoke about Mr. Parry and all of his accomplishments, etc. Then we had a sumptuous meal provided by Z-Licious Catering. That's Vida Lisa Mills. Some of you know as Vida, some of you know as Lisa Mills. And her team, amazing job. So I highly recommend them. We had great music provided by Jamal Thompson, DJ Big Dreams International, Selector Dr. P. And so him again, I want to highly recommend for your event. I mean, it was just a wonderful time. And Mr. Manners, when you see those people finish eating,
They went wild.
they went wild. They went wild. Imagine Auntie Monica. Auntie Monica with a
walking stick.
got to the dance floor. I mean, people were having a wonderful time. And it was good.
And those Parry girls from Cotton.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. They let loose. But it was really a good event. And I love to see people having a good time. I love to see people enjoying themselves because, like as we mentioned earlier, life is short. So just as long as it's clean fun, go out and have fun. So I want to thank everyone who played any role in that event. First off, let's thank the executive of the NRP for, giving us the go-ahead, the okay to put this event together. And certainly members of the organizing team. We had a very small team, but we were efficient. We had Angelica Elliott and Vernice Parry Griffin. Those two in particular did a lot of the work. We also had Sharnette Tyson, we had Tyreek Evelyn, and yours truly, Sanelda Willett, and yours truly, JD Kane. So we formed the team who organized the event. So we want to thank everyone for their work. The beautiful plaques were done by Malcolm's Revolutionary Designs. I mean, recommend them again highly. So it was great. And we thank the staff at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park for facilitating us. They did a very good job in welcoming us and, are giving us an opportunity to host our event there. And we saw some faces that we don't normally see. And guess what? I'm pretty sure you didn't feel out of place. Because when you come to a session, an event, a gala, it could even be a meeting hosted by the NRP, we are welcoming. We are welcoming. So be sure to come again. We have several events coming up this year. One of them is going to be hosted by the St. George's constituency branch, and that is a Valentine's Cruise cocktail. So we want you, and I'll speak about that, we want you to attend that and other events we have coming up. So that was our end of year gala held last Monday, Mr. Manners.
Yeah, I know you said that it was sheer coincidence that all nominees or awardees were female. But isn't it a fact that in most political parties in the sub-region, it is women folk who carry these parties?
That is true. That is absolutely true. I remember one lady who I look up to a lot in terms of politics and, giving young people, particularly women, an opportunity, and that's Hazel Brandy Williams. I remember having a discussion with her years ago. That time she was in the CCM administration, but we always got along well. And she spoke a lot about that. She said, imagine, we are the ones, women, meaning women, are the ones out there doing the work. I mean, laboring night and day, getting people to the polls, making sure that the men and the children who have just recently registered and the neighbors and everybody get out there, making sure that the persons working at the polling stations are fed and they have shift change and just coordinating the whole activity, making sure that there's house to house and everything that you could think of. They were the ones out there. But when it's time to put your name on a ballot, they said no. And she was pained by it, and she spoke passionately about it, and she spoke openly too. And so when, like you said, you realize that it was all women, even though it was sheer coincidence, that's the reality. I mean, we do have some men who contribute, but in this, it just so happened that it was women who were being recognized, and we thank them so much for their work. I mean, in the NRP, we have quite a few men, but guess what? We don't have a men's arm. We do have a women's arm. So that's important to note.
And of course, Madam Hazel Brandy Williams was, as you said, visionary, and she was a leader in terms of women in politics. I can't remember the acronym, but I know it has some I's and some...
CWIL?
CWIL, yeah. And I think she traveled near and far in the region and beyond promoting women in politics.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I can remember one female politician in Antigua giving plaudits to her.
Cora, I think her name is. I know who you mean, because I've been at sessions hosted during surrounding International Women's Day, and they were part of the activities of the CCM-led administration, but it was because of the Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams why so many of us were able to attend and participate. CCM wouldn't dare invite me to anything at this point in time, even if they know that it's beneficial. You know, they give a hard time because they're not concerned about moving people forward. They're more taken up with your political affiliation. But Hazel didn't do that. So Hazel ensured that all of us, you know, as many persons as possible got the opportunity to attend and speak openly. And that lady, I know her well. I know exactly who you mean. I can see her here in front of me. She was a member of the opposition at the time in Antigua, but she too was fearless, and she came quite a few times to to address the gathering.
A convention at Mount Nevis.
Yes.
Then there was a march through Charlestown, which culminated at the Villa.
I hosted one of them too.
Yeah, with that famous Trinidadian soca artist who.
Oh, that one was Destra. There was also one with Itana. I hosted that one with
So, what will the NRP or what will Charlestown, you as a leader, be doing to get men more on board?
Well, we have men on board within our group, right? Our group, in fact, is chaired and vice chaired by two men, one young, one seasoned, in Devon Cornelius and Dr. Kelvin Daly. As a matter of fact, before our last election, they had reversed roles. So it shows that we are promoting longevity and succession. Okay? And so we do have men within our constituency group. I actually think in our group we have a good balance of men and women. But I don't just want men to come forward. I want men and women. I want young people to come forward, because we need everybody to make this thing work. I mean, sometimes I go with an idea, or I have an idea conceptualized. It may be a good idea, but somebody has a different spin that can turn it into an even better idea. And you can't see everything. As a caretaker, as a candidate, you can't see everything. So you rely on people from different walks of life, people who sit high in the offices and people who work in the fields. You rely on everybody to give that collective approach, because you want to be able to touch as many persons as possible within the community. So certainly I can speak for the NRP St. Paul's group and use this opportunity to invite persons who want to move Nevis forward, but also are willing to work towards seeing that happen, to become a member of our group. You can give me a call. You can reach out to any member of the group, the chair, Devon Cornelius, deputy chair, Dr. Kelvin Daly, and myself as the caretaker, and let us know that you are interested, and we can take it from there. We meet ever so often to discuss plans, and outside of our regular meetings, of course I can't say too much on the radio, but outside of our regular meetings, we have a forum that facilitates the exchange of ideas. So if you are willing to be part of the group, even if you've never been a part of any political organization before, but you want to see a change in government, you want to see a change in Nevis 1, and you believe that we deserve better, and you're a registered voter, dear, please reach out and let's have you. I definitely want to see more persons. I want to see wider scope of ideas. I want to see more hands on deck, because it is not about the NRP, it is not about JD, it is about moving Nevis forward.
When the NRP held its convention a few weeks ago, the featured speaker, Jadier Jean Pierre, was it? Yeah. One of the things she said very early in her presentation is, next time I come back to Nevis, make sure I see young people in the front. And I asked Devon Cornelius about that when he was here on December 16th, because I like when we engage with the young people in our community. How engaged are the young people in Nevis and in your constituency?
Okay, so St. Paul has a good mix. Again, we have quite a bit of young people and we have quite a bit of seniors in St. Paul's. Our constituency group also has a fairly good mix. However, as a young person myself, I definitely want to see an influx of young persons, not because I'm trying to push out the older persons, certainly not at all, but the young persons as they are right now seem to be the more indecisive. You know, we fluctuate a lot in terms of our thoughts, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I believe that if we can hear from you more what you want to see, what you would like to see happen, and get you being part of the process, we will be able to have more stability in that area. So while we do have representation from young people, J.D. Keynes, I'm calling on other young people like myself to come forward and share your ideas. Now, I like to call a spade, and the reality is not everyone may get along with everyone in the group. So somebody may have never spoken to me, somebody may have never spoken to Jane, but as long as we have the same vision, the same goal, and the same purpose, we definitely can move things forward. And our meetings are respectful, and we like I said, we provide a platform so that people can respectfully share their ideas. Sometimes you agree, sometimes you disagree, but everybody gets that opportunity to have a voice, being mutually respectful. So if you are so inclined, please reach out so that we can help to grow the constituency group and really move St. Paul forward. It is not so easy to move a constituency forward when you are in opposition. You don't have the resources that the government has. But guess what? We have the vision that they don't. Mm-hmm. We have the vision that they don't. We have a current area representative who can't even be bothered at this point. He knows that he's in the checkout lounge, so he can't even be bothered as to what happens. I mean, hey, he wants to go home and be a grandpa, and there's nothing wrong with that. I support that, but we should not suffer because that is what is going to happen. And they have persons fighting to see who's next and all of that. We want to move Nevis forward. We're not about self, because I tell people all the time, listen, I'm comfortable where I am, I am comfortable where I am. Ain't nobody running me from where I am. But I just don't like to see what's happening in my country. I don't like to see what's happening in my island. So yes, I get up every day and I go to work and I like my job and I like interacting with people. It has to be more than me. Mm-hmm. It has to be more than me. Because at the end of the day, I have a child behind, and I have to think about what future will be there for her, what opportunities will be there for her. And so it is the things that are put in place now that will benefit people 10 and 20 years from now. People don't always realize that. And I say all the time, I'm so happy that Joseph Parry and his team were in office at that particular time, because when people think that they are then benefiting from a CCM-led administration because perhaps they would have taken over the realms of government at a particular time, not so. You are benefiting from the foundation that was laid by Parry and his team from 2000 and was it 6? Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that's very important to me, and I need all of us to be of that same vein, Mr. Manners. And saying that, quite a few persons are not registered where they live, and I'm big on this. If you have recently relocated, so you lived in St. John, but you now live in St. Paul, you should move your name. Nobody has anything against you, and yes, we know that's where you voted all the time, but the reality is if you don't live there anymore, you should move your name. You should be registered where you live. And so I am asking persons, regardless of your political affiliation, even if you don't have any political affiliation, to do the right thing. Equally, if you were once registered in St. Paul, or if you're currently registered in St. Paul and you have since relocated to Gingerland, St. Thomas, St. James, wherever, you should move your name. You see me? I register where I live, and so I am asking other persons to do the same. The candidates and caretakers, we register where we live. We register where we live, so it's only fair, that you do the same. It's nothing personal. Don't let it reach to a point where somebody has to object to your name, because, and that's another thing, Mr. Manners, objections are held for everybody in the community, and somebody's name gets objected to, and they automatically start to point fingers at a political party and say, oh, Mary objected to my name, John objected to my name. First off, did Mary or John have grounds to object to your name? They probably did. But even so, it may not have even been a particular political party. Sometimes I don't even know what they're referring to, but people claim that you've objected. The reality is, let's do the right thing. If you don't live where you're registered, please go. It's not a long process. Just go and tell them that you've since moved and you want to update your record. Let's do the right thing. When you come into the bank to do your business, you really should have the correct address, and we ask for your proof of address, etc. So let's do the right thing. That's something that I wanted to share, and I want us to do that sooner rather than later. And finally, on this particular issue, many of us have children or adult children. No, that doesn't sound right. We have adult young people living in our homes. They've recently turned 18. Some of them maybe even reached 20, 21 now. And they are not yet registered. That shouldn't be. That should not be. It's not about, I'm not interested in politics. Somebody has to govern. Somebody has to govern. So I am saying, why not be part of the team that helps to elect the next government? One full basket, as we say locally. So try to be part of the team. So get your young people registered. They are your children, but they have since crossed over to adulthood. Make sure that they are registered to vote. Make sure that they too have a say in what's happening on the island of Nevis, that they can make informed decisions about their future and their children's future. So that's very important, and I want to encourage that. If you know any young person in St. Paul in particular who is of voting age but they have not yet registered, let's work on getting that done. You can reach out to me. Let's work on getting that done. And I know I said the last thing on this point, but that was the penultimate. I have one more. I need us to understand and recognize that we have laws and rules that govern our whole electoral system. One of the things that happens every year when we have mass objections, so you can object at any time, but there's also mass objections, and I'm going to call out these people. We need to learn to do the right thing. We have persons who are CARICOM nationals, and because they lived in Nevis for a particular point in time, they were able to register to vote after a period. They have since relocated back to their home country, which means they are no longer eligible to vote in our elections. The only people as it is right now who can vote in our elections across the board are citizens. And so if you're a CARICOM national who once lived in Nevis and you were eligible to vote and you no longer live in Nevis, your name should not be on our register of voters. And I need our registration officers to do the right thing. We can't keep doing this year after year and saying in St. Paul you have one set of rules, unwritten rules. Then you go to St. James, you hear a different set of rules. That can't be. And I am telling you, I am prepared to call your name. I'm prepared to name you and shame you this go around. Because right is right and wrong is wrong. I have personally sat, because I've never objected, but I've sat in objection hearings I've sat in objection hearings where everybody in the room, including the officer, knows that the person does not live there. And they will tell you things like, well, it's my boyfriend. I go there to sleep. Huh? So if I have 4, I can choose the address that I want? That is what you're saying. And this is the kind of nonsense that passes on the island of Nevis when you handpick people to sit in these positions. And I don't know about them, but nobody's going to make me can't sleep at night because of any guilty conscience. So I'm calling on you to do the right thing. And for you, members of the electorate, if you know you fall into any of these categories, please, just do the right thing.
I share your passion, especially for the young people to get involved in the electoral process. I was listening to 99.1 FM in Antigua just before I came here. You know, they have a by-election on January 14th
coming up, yeah,
to fill the seat
Assad.
left vacant by the death of Assad Michael. And they were giving, the 2 hosts on the radio show was giving the story of a 19-year-old who returned to Antigua for Christmas. And it's going to be the first time that they are going to be voting in an election. And they have asked their parents to change the date, put it back further, so they could be on island to cast a vote in that election. That's the kind of passion I'm not seeing in Nevis. We are fighting for the young people of Nevis, and they don't seem to be too involved and too interested. And that has to change.
You see, what's happening, Mr. Manners, is that our people, not just the young, but we're speaking of the young, have become very transactional. In that they recognize, and it's sad, but it's true, they recognize that they don't see their representatives for 5 years after they've elected them.
Let's take this caller, JD. Good evening. You're our first caller for 2025. Welcome.
Good night.
Good night. Happy
night.
New Year.
And I want to wish you and Judy a happy New Year. But something ran at me while Judy was talking about CARICOM citizens who register, used to live St. Kitts Nevis, because it happened a lot in St. Kitts too, you know, Judy. These people, they come and they take part in the process, and they leave Ireland, gone back home, and the name still remain on the list. And a lot of the college politicians, that was Brian Law. That's what Brian used in 1980 when Kennedy Simmons challenged them, and that same thing. Brian used that, they got the boyfriend in the constituency. We got to wipe out that. That is a sign of corruption.
Correct.
And that's what nasty politicians use to corrupt the electoral process. And we don't stamp it out, you know. It will stamp out. Steve, have a good night.
Good night.
And Jenny, we want to hear more of that.
All right, thank you.
Like cancer in St. Kitts Nevis. And we're going to correct it.
We need to. We definitely need to.
The process got to clean up. Ain't gonna work.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ain't gonna work.
Thank you very much. And have a
Otherwise,
good...
it's gonna be nasty.
Yeah, and
Have a good night.
Have a
Good night. And Mr. Manners, just to piggyback on something he said, I witnessed firsthand something that shocked me in terms of our electoral process. So you thought that was bad in terms of sitting in an objection hearing and listening to the objector and the person being objected to, as well as the officer, have that dialogue about whether or not that person should be removed from the voters list. That wasn't bad enough. I remember one time I went to the electoral office. I actually followed someone, and they went to put their name where it should be. That person, and I know this for a fact, that person has only ever lived one place, and that was Hamilton, St. Paul. And for not a by-election, what's it called?
Federal?
For a federal election, thank you. For a federal election, that person, along with a few others from Hamilton, had their names moved. They didn't do it on their own. Their names just moved. They actually showed up to the polls to vote, and their names weren't there. And in calling around and in doing the checks, we realized that their names were moved and they ended up in Brown Pasture side. But remember, because it's a federal election, all of it will fall under Nevis 9. However, right is right and wrong is wrong. So sometimes when you hear the count, it's skewed because all of the persons, yes, it's Nevis 9, but that vote belonged in the St. Paul part of Nevis 9. Anyway, so that happened, that election, and up to the day before, their name was on for St. Paul. So they wasn't going to stay home. So what did they do? They went and they voted there with the intention to, after that election, get it corrected. So I went, and I didn't do any talking. I went and I listened to the person, and I was there minding my business, and the person explained what had happened and said that they came to correct it. The worker at the time told the person that that could not have happened. Your name could only be moved if you move it. Well, maybe that is the rule, but we know that that is not what happened. Anyway, the person then insisted. Long and short of it is, they said, well, I want to change it. Well, the young lady, by the way, she still works there, pulled up the record. And she said, but I'm looking in the system, and your name is here as Hamilton St. Paul. The person said, oh, so y'all change it back. And she said, I am telling you, your name is here as Hamilton St. Paul. And they were going back and forth. She said, well, okay. So I said, well, there's no need for me to change anything, obviously, because my name is there as Hamilton St. Paul. Well, fasten JD. In the electoral office, notice the list on the wall. Well, I knew that the list had come out, must be the day before. So I was just there perusing it because I didn't get an opportunity to go through the entire thing yet. So there I was going through the list, but I'm eavesdropping on the conversation. And I reach the area where the person's name should be, and I see the father, the mother, even the brother, and not the young lady. Remember, this is a list that came out the day before. And the worker is there telling the young lady, you don't need to make a correction because your name is showing up here on the correct thing. So then I said, but look here, this came out yesterday, and with that, I don't do risky business, I don't do hanky-panky in here. And the worker went off. Now, I am not going to accuse the worker of doing risky business. I am not going to accuse the worker of doing hanky-panky. It could be that the worker had a temporary case of visual impairment, and so they weren't able to see where the young lady's name was really registered. Be that as it may, these are the kind of things that happen right here in Nevis, right in the electoral office, and that is why we need everybody to be passionate. We need everybody to talk about these things and stand your ground. I also remember a situation where a young lady went to register, and they told the young lady, your address says XYZ, and we have a drop-down system, and when we click on the drop-down, that is not in this parish. Well, Mr. Manor, St. Paul is one of those constituencies where there are villages in both parishes. There are villages in both parishes, both constituencies. So some of Hamilton is in St. Paul, and there's some of Hamilton in St. John, and the same thing goes for Stony Grove, and there are other areas, Craddock Road, other areas. And the person said, by virtue of that, they cannot put their name there. Imagine. The person said, do you know where I live? Yes, but there isn't a drop down. Mind you, their neighbor is registered. These are the kind of things, and they want to make people feel like big people, big sensible people feel like we're stupid. So we have to be passionate, and we have to guard them, because there are some people who will sell their soul for this government. They will sell their soul for this government. We have to decide now that we can't do that, and we have to get our people away from being transactional in nature. And you know, the sad thing is, some people really want the help, and so they promise them $2, and they say, boy, I'm not going to see my representative again for 5 years, so give me $2 now. And that is what is happening. And I can't say that I don't understand where they are coming from, but I certainly don't agree. Anybody can tell you that JDSK Keynes has never passed any money for vote, and I stand firm on that. You know why? If I don't have it to give everybody, I'm not going to give anybody. Because it means I'm saying that your vote is worth more than his vote. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that. So if I can't give everybody money, and not for your vote, but for you to have a better standard of living, for you to buy a little sweetie, I ain't giving anybody. Because I'm standing on principle. And I know sometimes people say, oh, she don't want certain things. I'm not doing. Because I can't then, when you elect me, stand up and say, I am going to do the right thing. When I did all the wrong things to get there. When I did all the wrong things to get there, I'm not perfect, nor am I pretending to be. But I know that I want to serve my island with distinction, Mr. Manners. And so I believe how you get in is how you're going to get out. And I want to get in fairly.
9:25, and we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some things that you have been involved with in the community. But let me remind our listeners and viewers, you can give us a call here, 469-7953, 669-7312, 669-7312, and 766-7312. Might be to commend the honorees at the gala last week. It could be to make your commitment to this party. It could be that you want to show appreciation to the Honorable Joseph Parry. There's a Chinese proverb that one generation plants a tree so that others can get shade. In the first instance, it was Simeon Daniel. February 14th, 1991, the opening of the Four Seasons. And then Joseph Parry saving that after Hurricane Omar between 2008 and 2010.
Yeah.
And that is the tree under which Nevis still stands. All of you at the Four Seasons who had a bumper season, remember the names, Simeon Daniel and Joseph Parry. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.
Your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
Okay, and we're back. And JD, you've been involved with recent events and activities, donation to Alexandria Hospital, story time at Nevis Public Library. Of course, you spoke at the Christmas tree lighting at Stony Grove. And there'll be no carnival without J.D. Keynes. And of course, the CPS, Charlestown Primary School House Pageant, and the Christmas concert. You've been outside.
I've been outside. I've been outside, Mr. Manners. So, sometimes I get some licks because I don't always share the things that I'm up to. Some of it, and I understand, I accept and understand, person's point of view. To be honest, some of it I don't like to publicize because of the nature of the activity. But I'm trying to do a little bit better there. But some of it, just understand because of the nature. If you're doing it from the heart, you can't always publicize. But I do want to share a few things that, have happened since the last time I was here. The Charlestown Primary School, my alma mater, hosted its very first house pageant and Christmas concert. So it was 2-in-1, and I'm still a member of the PTA. I love my school very much, and so I was the hostess with the mostess at that activity. And I want to laud the school and all members of the organizing committee, and of course the children who put on a spectacular show. It was a truly amazing event, and anything with children that's positive, I want to support in any way that I'm able to. So I want to commend them, and just wanted to share that with you. Then we had a series of Christmas tree lighting ceremonies on the island, and that's something that we love in Nevis. We just love to know that we are going around to the various Christmas tree lighting ceremonies, and I was at the one in Stony Grove in particular where I spoke, whereas you attended one or two. This one I actually spoke at, and I want to thank the Stony Grove community for inviting me once again to speak at the gathering, because Christmas is about family and togetherness. It's not political in nature, and I certainly was honored to be there because the patron this year was Idella Newton Wallace, someone who I know very well, and I get along well with her children. And so she was the patron, and I'm happy that I got to bring greetings to the Stony Grove community and those who visited from other areas of Nevis and speak a bit about Idella. I actually did what's it called? The word is evading me right now, but I broke down her name and I said what each letter stood for, because really, and yes, Idella is really a tower of strength in her community. One of the things she said, and it's true, she gets along well with her neighbors. She gets along well with her neighbors. She, again, is another example of someone who is not on the front line doing certain things, but when they do things from their heart. And from humble beginnings, she still manages to give. She still manages to give. Sometimes you have little, but you give much. And these are the kind of people who really should be out there being honored and recognized. So kudos to the Stony Grove group for doing that. Then that same evening, actually, before I went to the Stony Grove tree lighting, I was at the Nevis Public Library for a fantastic event. Oh my gosh, I loved it. It was story time, and I want to applaud the public library. This isn't my first time, reading stories. I love story time. I as big as I am, that's something I love. And we got to wear our pajamas, so I rolled up in my pajamas. I have to share some of the photos, but yeah, so we came in our pajamas and we sat there on our blankets and we were doing story time, and that's something I love. I'm very animated. They were like, "You want one of our books?" I'm like, with all the books that I have at home, so because my daughter had lots of books, and there are persons who pass down books to her because they realized that I was into reading, because I love reading. And I remember one time a lady reached out to me and said, "JD, I have some books for my daughter. Would you accept them? I don't want to sound." I said, "Excuse me, of course," because they were real good quality books and stuff. And so the information was good, and you had every single stage. So I brought one of my books. It was a Magic School Bus story. So there was a little bit of science, and there was a lot of animation and lots of action. We had a wonderful time. So that was a good activity. So that was story time at the Nevis Public Library. Also in December, we had Panorama. And this was actually my first Panorama in person. Because, so my daughter plays the pan, but she was never a part of any formal group. She just did it as a student at CPS. But she has been recruited through Mr. Leroy Paris Jr., who taught her at CPS and, recognizes the talent. She's into music because she plays the piano as well. And so she and a few others, they joined some bigger children. They're not as old as the others, but they did a good job. So I went, as part of the team and to show my support. Mr. Manners, when I tell you it was a spectacular activity, what you guys saw on social media and what was there in person, totally different. If you thought it was good online, it was spectacular in person. Every single group did a phenomenal job. It was amazing. And of course, we had 4 groups from Nevis. So, I got up and I danced. I was a little bit biased, I'm not going to lie. I clapped for everybody, but I was dancing for my Nevis groups. But the Cretition groups were amazing. The Division groups were amazing. It just felt good to be a national of St. Kitts and Nevis with the level of talent that we saw on display, mostly from young people. There were a few more seasoned persons, but generally young persons. In Poinciana, which is a group that Star plays with, it was a child as young as 8. So we had some young ones, and then in some of the more established groups, there were persons a little bit older, but still essentially young people. And it was, don't miss it next year. When Culturama has theirs, don't miss it. And when Carnival has theirs, don't miss it. It's just phenomenal.
And of course, EBJ Harmonics,
won again.
Sponsored by the Bank of Nevis, won for the 4th time. I was having a conversation with Junior Paris, of course, an outstanding musician.
Amazing.
And he told me, I think there were 6 steel bands all told, 4 from Nevis.
4 from Nevis and 2 from St. Kitts.
And I asked him why was that. He said Nevis has a much stronger program.
That's true.
Than in St. Kitts.
That's
true. That's kudos to everyone.
Yeah, because, and allow me to pause here and recognize Mr. Patterson, what's his first name? Gavin
Patterson.
Patterson, for his work. He had two of the teams there. Nevis Community Steel Orchestra, Nevis Community Development Steel Orchestra, and Gifted Youth Steel Orchestra. So kudos to Gavin Patterson for, just really pushing this with our young people. And of course, Mr. Leroy Paris Jr., I mean, selfless. And I know those children give them headache. I know they make him talk. But one time I spoke to Junior, and Junior was like, JD, to be honest, even though I want to teach the music to them, I want this to be a platform where some of the children tap into. They could have been out there doing so many other things. So the fact that they are here, and it's selfless, and he has such patience with them, and I know they drive him crazy. So kudos to Leroy Paris Jr., Gavin Patterson, and all of the others who are really doing a great job with our people. But he's not lying about the strong program in Nevis, because if you realize, the Nevis groups tend to have the younger ones coming up, and so that's very good. So kudos to them. And then finally, hope I'm not missing anything, also in December, I was getting ready to have lunch with my family. I love the holidays, because I don't cook during the holidays. I might do a little thing here and there, but I cook every day. I don't want to cook during the holidays. And so I have no shame to say, from Christmas Day to New Year's Day and a few days after, I eat from Nurse Avril Cherry Walters and Jean Keynes. I have no shame in my game. We're going to eat, and if I run out of food, I'm going right back by them and I'm going to eat again. And the trick to do it by my mother, I go and I'm like, Mommy, I just come to visit you. How things? And she gonna chat, and then I gonna say, okay, then me going, and she gonna say, you know what, nothing. And so I leave with food every time. So that's my little trick, and it works all the time. But yeah, so I was getting ready to have lunch with my family, a couple of days before, thinking about, the lunch and stuff. And this year it was by my aunt. That's Nurse Walters. Yes, that's my good up auntie. And so I was getting ready to have lunch by her, and then, she's a nurse. And I know there have been times when, as a nurse, you can't be with your family on Christmas Day. You have to make those level of sacrifices. And, I'm close with a lot of nurses. And one of them and I had that discussion. And in having that rapport, we recognize, wow, with so many persons, not just nurses, but the health staff on a whole, who aren't able to be with their family at all, or even for the bulk of the day. And so we were like, you know what, let's do this. Let's just find something to do. I mean, I don't have much, but I said, just a little treat. And so I dropped in totally without their knowledge, and we showed up and, gave them a little treat. And I must say, they were so appreciative. They were genuinely thankful. And it made me feel good. And I took Star with me because, yes, she does Girl Guides and stuff, so she knows about giving back. But I wanted her to see in particular that even with a little, you still try to help. And yes, they're doing their jobs, but it's a selfless. You can't pay them enough for the work that they are doing. And I get to be home with you on Christmas Day. They don't get that. Their children don't get to be with their parents on Christmas Day. So I intentionally took her for that. So that's one of the things we did. Not for any gain, but, from the heart. And I've had my share of visits to the hospital, and they could tell you, as big as I am, like a little child behind there. And so I am appreciative of their work.
I should have said this when Carlisle spoke about Lorraine Brown and turning 94. Last Monday was a very full day for me, because at 11 o'clock I had to go to the Pond Hill Community Center to celebrate Mr. Elmo Farrell.
Yes.
90 years of age.
Looks good.
I went up to his table and I said, you look more like 19, and we had a good laugh. Of course, I shared some pictures on Facebook. But then I moved to the next table, and there was his lovely wife, Rosalie, from Chickenstone, Claygut in Gingerland. And there was Spencer Hanley telling a story how Elmo Farrell was one of the the guys in the village who they looked up to. I think he lived in the Virgin Islands at some point in time.
So
he
that
was
would
always
explain.
very sharply dressed. And they used to make their way up to every Friday night to Central. Central was, of course, a big night spot in Nevis in those days. And Spencer said he couldn't figure why every Friday night they were heading up there. And he was actually heading up to meet with the fine Rosalie there in Claygut, Coal Hill. And they've been married for over 60 odd years. It was a fantastic morning, thanks to all the children, of course, Marilyn, Lynette, Avril.
One of my favorite teachers.
Yes, and of course Adonis.
Yes, my classmate.
The master chef. It was very well coordinated. I slipped over to the next table, and sitting there was Rosalie. And she tell me me so 92 and me 89.
Wow.
And then sitting next to her smiling was a mother of culture, Irma Johnson. I said, how old are you, Irma? She said, I'm not going to tell you. Your brother asked me the other day, and I said, I'm not going to tell him. I said, well, you have to tell me. I said, how old are you? Tell me. She said, 89. I asked her which month. She said she's not going to tell me, and she ain't going to be on Nevis anyway. She's going away. I've since found out that her birthday is in the month of June. Nevis must celebrate in a special way. Teacher Irma Johnson when she turns 90. She's not somebody who likes attention drawn to her. I thought that the government of Nevis missed a big opportunity. There is absolutely no way that the cultural complex should have been named by the nondescript name NEDAC's Nevis Cultural Center.
I agree.
If they wanted to do something, it should have been that one aspect, the cultural complex, could be named after Calvin Cabu Howell, and Irma Johnson have the cultural village named after her. It seems as if in Nevis we're afraid to honor people.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody knows I love street art. They did a lot of abstract painting on the cultural wall, but not one cultural icon was properly honored for Culturama.
I agree. I felt the same way. 50.
And so since the government didn't see the need, they who tell you people matter more. In June of 2025, we must find a way to honor Irma Johnson for the role that she has played.
And she's still seeking to keep our culture alive. Mr. Manna, so we attend the same church. And ever so often, Miss Johnson performs during the service. Just last month, we had a Christmas concert, a pre-Christmas concert, because it was in the early part of December. And I was there, and Miss Johnson had the drums. She had a wonderful poem. She had the drums, and then she let go with a set of dancing. I mean, she's really trying to start to tell her she looks forward to Miss Johnson's presentations, you know.
Somebody made a comment on my post, and they say she's still walking through town like a 19-year-old.
Yeah, yes, very active.
You remember last year when the guy from Bands got to Dance Masquerade, Sturge, died in an accident. And they, of course, had the big drum.
And she was...
Irma Johnson Lego in the street.
I have video clips of her dancing. That's just her.
She has been an amazing woman. And I don't believe in celebrating people when they're gone. So Nevis, mark that down. June of 2025, Teacher Irma turns 90. Now, school reopened today. Has the Charlestown preschool gone back to its old location?
It has. It has gone back to its old location. I am happy that it's back at its old location, its original location. I'm sure that brings some relief to parents and guardians, because remember, in September, they intended to go there and in the blink of an eye, they had to go to someplace else, make arrangements last minute because persons who had no vision couldn't see that they needed to do some severe and intense renovations to the site. But Mr. Manners, I passed there, and I passed there every single day. So I am not just pulling things out of thin air. I passed there every single day. And I remember saying, please don't tell me that this container is going to be here when school reopens. Because I remember the grass being cut more than a week ago. And I said, well, they're probably coming back because they're cutting the grass around the container. There's a container, an actual container on the grounds. Remember, this is a preschool, eh? Mm-hmm. On the grounds, not nearby, in the schoolyard, there's a container. There's not a lot of yard space, but there's a container there. So when I saw them cutting the grass, I was like, but gotta be they're coming back because who cuts the grass around the container? Anyway, today I'm there and the container is still there. The grass has started to go back. It's not crazy, but it really needed cutting again. And there's a big dumpster right outside. It's actually partially in the road. There's a big dumpster outside because at this late stage, we are still not fully ready. Yes, the building is painted. Yes, the building has undergone significant repairs. And nobody needs a trophy for that because that is what they're supposed to do. So don't fool yourself. But we are still working. Up to yesterday when I was going to church and I passed there, persons were there. And I'm not talking about the staff, persons were there doing work. There was a time when on the outside everything was painted and everything looked good and you didn't see anybody there working. So I thought that they were ready, barring the container needed to be removed. But then when I went there yesterday and I saw that persons were there, I'm like, what craziness is this? And then this morning to see a dumpster outside. And when I say dumpster, I'm not referring to a garbage bin. You know, those big dumpsters was outside for them to take out, you know, the heavier stuff that had not been discarded as yet. I mean, school was supposed to reopen since early September. Remember, we spoke at length about the renovation work, the significant renovation work that took place just next door at the cultural complex and then below at the cultural village, but nothing at the Charlestown preschool. And to see today, even with the work that has been done, they were still not 100% ready. And I mean, that school got significant work, but then there are still some of the schools that to this day don't have the repairs that they knew about prior to September. So that's the situation that we are in. And when we speak about these things, people get upset, people get offended, and I don't know. I don't know what my sin is when it comes to speaking about education. But it looks like there is a special pill or special vitamin that is being taken every morning because my name has to be called within that ministry. My name has to be called within that ministry. And it's sad because you guys know that you're sitting up there and you're not pleased with what is going on. You guys are talking about how you continue to be undermined. When you guys are following the rules that have been put in place, and then somebody could just call the minister and say, Minister, I have this problem. And the minister say, forget about your rule. Let the person do this, let the person do that. You guys know that you guys are pained. But yet still, because of political affiliation, you're up there taking one dose of JD Cetamol every day. This is nonsense. I am speaking on your behalf. I'm trying to make things better for you. You know, but we need to get away from that. You know, you can't feel that it is right in January to still be working at the Charlestown preschool. I mean, this is crazy. Bear in mind, we have other schools out there that need a lot of work. St. James still hasn't gotten all of the renovations that needs to happen. Charlestown Primary, others, they still haven't gotten all the renovation. And you're not going to get to everything, don't get me wrong. But this situation with Charlestown Preschool, that should not have been happening today. No dumpster was supposed to be outside, and that container needs to move. I don't care how long it's been there, it's time to go. Nonsense. We're dealing with preschoolers, 3 to 5 year olds, with a limited yard space, because remember now they deal an extension, so less yard space. That container needs to go.
Yep. Chairperson of the St. George's Group, Carleen Lawrence, sent me this flyer today. NRP St. George Constituency Group presents Valentine's Day all-inclusive cruise cocktail. 14th February, Prince Devonte, the party boat.
Party boat.
6 p.m. to 10 p.m. entertainment by DJ Smudge and EK Railright. Tickets, what is it, 150, I think.
So single, yeah.
Um,
Well, they have early bird right now.
early bird,
There's an early bird special.
125, single, 250 couple, and attractive prizes to be won. Hashtag Valentine's Day, hashtag love, hashtag NRP, hashtag St. George's, hashtag fun. JD, I gonna be outside.
Well, you're not cutting any style on me because I done order me outfit, Mr. Manners.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I love.
It sounds like a funny.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, and I want to commend the St. George's group for coming up with this activity. I know initially, when in the communications committee, we heard the idea from them and we were blown away, and they didn't really want to put their name out there because they just wanted persons to come. We don't want people to think everything is political in nature, but I'm glad that they eventually decided to do that, because guess what, people talk all the time about St. George's and think that NRP is not serious about St. George's. How so, when our St. George constituency group remains one of the most active, certainly more active than the one where the sitting representative, the party that the sitting representative occupies. So I want to commend the St. George's group for this idea, and I am encouraging as many of you to try to tap in on the early bird special. It goes until the 31st of January. Why pay more when you can pay early and save money? So try to capitalize on that. On the poster, you'll see the numbers to call, but tickets are also available at Divinity Touch. That's right there in the heart of Charleston. So you have no excuse as to why you can't be part of that. If you're residing overseas, you can buy a ticket and give it to somebody here. We want everybody to patronize. I mean, remember, we can't get into government just by the blink of an eye. That's the reality. So we need everybody, and recognize that we are trying to help ourselves. So please support this fundraising activity. Mr. Manners, before we get down to the closing parts of tonight's program, have you heard that the government is closing off its Department of its Sustainable Development Department, or its Department of Sustainable Development? It falls right in Nevis, yes. It falls under social development, but they're closing that unit. They actually, sorry, it's a unit, not a department, because
Sustainable Development,
yes.
which is a buzzword in St. Kitts.
Correct. Bingo. And so it falls under social development, but there's an actual unit that deals with sustainable development, and they are closing down that office, and so the staff is expected to be dispersed to other units or departments within the government. Now, my thing is, I mean, if it's not sustainable, then I guess you have to do what you have to do. But why isn't it sustainable? As you said, that's a buzzword, not just in St. Kitts and Nevis, but in the region. And here we are, right when people are pushing this. St. Kitts as a whole ministry. St. Kitts as a whole ministry. And right when people are pushing this, right when we are at the pinnacle, we are saying here on the island of Nevis that we are going to close that unit. The problem is that we don't have persons with the vision to create the policy direction. And remember, Henry Daniel likes to say, and I agree with him 1,000%, the policy direction must come from the top. So imagine we are closing down an entire unit that deals with sustainable development, and then they want to fool people and talk about sustainable development goals and the green economy and the blue economy and the orange economy and all these things. They have no idea what this entails. It just so happened that these sound to be the buzzwords of people, and so they said, let me use them too. So we are closing down a whole unit that deals with sustainable development. And I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, I know this for a fact. I know this for a fact.
You shared a post on your Facebook page and you said, I love this and I love it too. Because the party leaders always talked about alignment, that Nevis should be in sync with St. Kitts. And we know one of the areas in which we are being left behind is the Department of the Creative Economy and Cultural Heritage. Here, the Premier believes that all you have to do is build buildings and you plug and play. Let's take this call. Good evening, caller. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Mr. Manners, and Happy New Year to Lady J.D. Keynes.
Good night.
I'm speechless. Now, shutting down sustainable development tells you what? It tells you that we don't think that we can sustain development in Nevis on any level. So, where are we going?
Exactly.
What is happening? What is going to happen to Nevis? If we are shutting down sustainable development, it means we have no plans for that.
Oh, bingo. Bingo.
And the country is not going anywhere. What's going to happen to all of our young people in schools when we're teaching them about development, yet we're telling them the message is we can't do sustainable development? Is this the reason why the hospital is in the mess it's in? Is this the reason why so many other things have not taken off in Nevis? Perhaps we should get the Sinkits crew to come over and teach us about sustainable development and make it work. That's frightening. It's absolutely frightening to me to hear that we are shutting down sustainable development.
Yeah. And if you think I'm lying, you can even check the budget, because what they do, they know that the budget goes on for several days, right, caller? And not everyone will listen to everything, and not everyone would actually read the document. And so sometimes it misses us when they allocate no funds for certain things, or you realize the allocation is significantly reduced. But I heard the talk, and then we went and I shared it with the other caretakers, and we were able to recognize, but yeah, there is no allocation there. That's what's happening.
We'll be following that very closely.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Well, thank you for your input. You're spot on that it speaks to the lack of vision. You see, this current administration can only see as far as its nose. I mean, it's a local saying, but it's true. When it comes to anything about tomorrow, the next year, the next couple of years, that's where they fail us every single time. It is by luck and prayer that Nevis has even reached this far. Let's be real. Let's be real.
I woke up a couple of mornings ago to two cruise ships being in the Charlestown port. And I can't help but say this. Every time I drive through the extended part of Charlestown, where the tourists can come and walk from the pier and walk down to the Rest Haven area, I first of all, I get sick when I look at it because Mr. Nisbet was my godfather, and I spent much of my
childhood
vacation time, especially during the daytime, just hanging around there with him. And I ask myself, why hasn't anybody in government decided that this could be another Port Zante for Nevis? Why has that not happened? Why does the Rest Haven Hotel, the years ago, I left Nevis and I went to Detroit in 1972 when I finished high school. And I remember one day watching The Price is Right. And one of the gifts they were giving away was a stay at the Rest Haven Hotel in Nevis. And I leaped up out of my chair and I screamed and I jumped.
Wow.
I was so proud to hear that. Nevis? On The Price is Right? I mean, am I too old? You guys know what The Price is Right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I used to watch my grandmother.
All right. And so, you know, when I see the Rest Haven looking the way it's looking now,
It pains
does
you.
not anybody in the tourism part of the government have any vision for what could happen there?
No, they can just use it as a political football in the assembly.
Ouch. Have a good night.
You
Have
too.
a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And JD, I wanted to read that post which is shared into the record.
Yes, go ahead.
The Department of Creative Economy and Cultural Heritage collaborated with St. Kitts Nevis Association of Persons with Disabilities to present the very first Culture on Wheels. The initiative was birthed and executed by Stanley Carey of the Tabernacle Ancestral Mummies and dance specialist Marcia Jeffers, with the sole purpose of inclusivity and embracing the fact that culture makes us one. A total of 3 members of the association willingly and excitedly participated in this year's Sugar Mass Grand Parade on Wednesday, 1st January 2025. Vice President of SKNAPD and renowned Calypsonian Joseph Bergen, a.k.a. the Awesome Navigator, Miss Shanika Percival, and Mr. Shaquem Walters, a.k.a. Hotness. It is a hope that this project will become a beacon and staple in our parades for years to come. Cheers to creativity, Culture on Wheels 2025, #inclusivity. Another great example of how they are delving into the creative economy. Here, our only concept of it is we give a place, spend a few $1 million, and we got places ready to plug and play. We got to go beyond that.
And we're not taking an all of society approach. We are just we're just comfortable with who we think supports this government. I mean, it really pains me, 2 areas in particular, culture and health, that we continue to play politics rather than, try to get an all-inclusive approach. I mean, there are many areas, but those 2 really bother me, Mr. Manners. So, I think we are at the 10 o'clock hour. So I just want to remind persons to support the NRP, particularly the St. George's Group, in its upcoming fundraising activity. That is the Valentine's Cruise Cocktail on February 14th on board the party boat, Prince Devontae J. Also, I'm encouraging you to stay connected to all of our social media pages so that you can stay up to date with what's happening. Again, I want to encourage persons from the St. Paul area who want to move St. Paul forward, who want to see an NRP government in administration, NRP government in office and leading the affairs of the people of Nevis, to be part of our constituency group. There is room for all of you. We welcome ideas, differing as they may be, as long as there's respect for each other. We welcome all ideas. So feel free to reach out and I can share much more on that. Mr. Manners, it's definitely been a pleasure being with you another Monday evening. Next Monday, we'll have another caretaker, God spare their lives. And I just want to wish everyone, whether you support the NRP, the Concerned Citizens Movement, no party, you've never voted, you are fed up of what's happening and you want to see change, you live in Nevis, you live in the diaspora, wherever you may be, whoever you may be, I want to wish you 2025 that's marked with great health, some wealth, and of course happiness and much success. And I mean that from the heart. And just thank you for being here with me, thank you for listening, thank you for supporting. Oh, and before I go, there are some persons who really held me up in 2024. You continue to offer an encouraging word. You continue to share your ideas, and I thank you so much. There's some persons who heard me when I was silent. There's some persons who recognized when I was going through something or some things, and they held me up. I just want to thank you. I want to thank you so very much. If I don't get to say it every day, I want to let you know that I appreciate you. 2024 in some aspects was a challenging year, but hey, I ended it thankful, and I'm looking forward to 2025 with lots of hope. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
JD, we got you. We got you. Opening batter on opening night. your voice with the NRP in 2025. That's our show. We'll be back next week. I think it will be Dr. Patricia Bartlett. And I know for sure that one of her topics will be the Rest Haven Inn. Our caller talked about that. And of course, about some creative accounting in which the Minister of Finance was involved in 2024. Good night. See you next week.
Your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.